This was once one of the largest lakes in West Africa, Lake Faguibine.
All this area was covered by water. Then the water receded and trees started to grow around the lake. Then the trees started to disappear and people grew crops where the trees used to be. During the first rebellion, displaced persons arrived. They destroyed the forest, and once the forest was gone, sand dunes formed.
Average temperatures in northern Mali are expected to rise up to 4.7 degrees Celsius. That's an increase of over 40 degrees Fahrenheit.
China has built a large village in a disputed area in India's northeastern state of Arunachal Pradesh. So now the region has been long disputed by India and China. Indian army believes China continues to construct dual-use border villages in the region. The villages can also be used to position soldiers.
More than 90 people have died and dozens more are injured after a massive explosion in the capital, Freetown. The blast happened after an oil tanker truck collided with another vehicle at a busy junction in the city.
Russia invaded Crimea in 2014. Since then, the Kremlin insists Crimea is an integral part of Russian territory. Moscow has been working relentlessly to keep the peninsula in control. It has implemented policies of forced assimilation, tried to transform the demography, and guards the Ukrainian border with heavy military deployment. On the 1st of November, an American space tech company released some high-resolution satellite images of this area. They show around 1,000 military vehicles, troop tents, battle tanks, and self-propelled guns, all of this stationed at the Russian town of Yelnya. Ukraine says there are some 90,000 Russian troops stationed at the border. Reports say Russia is moving more military equipment here. Interestingly, Ukraine calls it a regular practice. The defense minister of Ukraine says that Russia has forever maintained its military presence along the border.
What have you come to understand about our supply chain, United States and global, and its resilience against tragedies, catastrophes in the world, like COVID, for example?
Yeah, I mean, we have built really long, really lean supply chains. And just by definition, they're fragile. The current mess that we have, it's not going to clear by Christmas. We'll be lucky if it clears by next Christmas.
Can you describe the current mess in supply chain that you're referring to?
Yeah, so we've got pileups of ships off the coast of California, Long Beach and LA in particular, in bad shape. Last I checked, it was around 60 ships, all of which are holding thousands of containers full of stuff that retailers were hoping was going to be on shelves for the holiday season. Meanwhile, the port itself has stacks and stacks of containers that they can't get rid of. The truckers aren't showing up to pick up the containers that are there, so they can't offload the ships that are waiting. And why aren't the truckers picking it up? Partly because there's a long history of inefficiency in making them wait, but it's because the warehouses are full.
Macy Celestinia was collecting cactus flowers to eat. She lives in southern Madagascar, where several UN agencies have been warning that drought is causing a climate change famine. The 47-year-old says her 8-month-old son died because of cactus fruit seeds that had piled up in his stomach. The UN's World Food Programme reports that more than 1.1 million people in Madagascar have been affected by severe hunger. Poor agricultural production has sent prices skyrocketing, meaning people can't afford to eat.
These people have not contributed to climate change, but they're paying probably the highest price.
Asked what she would want to tell world leaders at the summit, Celestinia said simply that the forest has a life, just as humans do, and that the lack of rain is breaking her heart.
The Al Harmali is in his 80s. He's been uprooted 4 times by the shifting front lines of Yemen's civil war. Of the estimated 1 million displaced people in Marib city, 80% are women and children. Aid agencies say the humanitarian needs far outstrip the capacity on the ground. The city has crowded camps, an overstretched public service and healthcare system, and an increasingly vulnerable host community.
New Delhi woke up breathing in the most dangerously polluted air of the year so far on Friday, after firecrackers were set off at the country's biggest festival, Diwali, despite a ban in the Indian capital. The city already has the worst air quality of all world capitals, but even by its standards, Friday's reading was extra bad. Under a blanket of toxic smog, the air quality index surged to 451 on a scale of 500.
In the latest, outdoor activities in schools and highways in the capital, Beijing, have been shut due to the smog. Incidentally, this comes as China ramps up coal production. China has increased its daily coal production by more than 1 million tons. This comes after households and businesses across the country battled power outages amid a global energy crisis. Several factors contributed to this. There was a supply chain disruption, and prices of fossil fuels rose amid a coal shortage. China has been heavily dependent on coal. At least 58% of its total energy is generated by coal. It's the world's largest coal producer and consumer. China generated 53% of the world's total coal-fired power. In fact, since 2011, China has burnt more coal than the rest of the world combined.
The Chinese are stocking up. They're buying cabbages, rice, sauce. Vendors are running out of stock. Begs the question, why? So let's try and find out why China is asking its citizens to stock up. Is there a food crisis? Is there a chance of a nationwide lockdown? Is China expecting tension with Taiwan to blow up? Or is the Met Office predicting an extreme harsh winter? Heavy rains have hit the agricultural province of Shandong. Crops have been ruined, supply chains have been disrupted, and now prices are soaring. China is in the middle of a Delta outbreak. Daily infections have touched a 3-month high. Several Chinese cities are under lockdown. Beijing has recorded its highest daily infection for the year. What are the chances that China will call for a nationwide lockdown? What about tensions with Taiwan then? Does that have something to do with this notice to stock up for an emergency? Come to a China versus Taiwan situation, Beijing will find itself globally isolated with its supply chains cut. And finally, the cold snap. The fear of that too is real. Reports say temperature in some parts of China is expected to fall by as much as 15 degrees this week. It is unlike China to push a panic button on food security because food is a very, very touchy issue in China. In the 1950s and 60s, the country lost tens of millions of people to the Great Famine. The tragedy still haunts China, and Xi Jinping knows this all too well. It is very unlike the CCP to risk its position by sending any sort of signal that can be read as a food emergency in China. Consider this. China never asked its citizens to stock up even when it put millions under a lockdown in 2020. No stock up notices were issued in Wuhan, none in Hubei. So why are they being issued now?
The prices of common vegetables such as cucumbers, spinach and broccoli have doubled. Some have become more expensive than pork, the staple meat in China. So when on Monday, the Chinese government issued a notice advising households to stockpile daily necessities, it sparked panic and heated discussion online. Some posted about rushing to buy essential goods. Others speculated that increasing tensions with Taiwan were the cause.
A bill has been introduced in the US Congress. It calls for military funding to Taiwan. And here are the specifics of this bill. If passed, this is what it will allow. Taiwan will get $2 billion every year from the United States. This will be in the form of grants and loans. It will be used for the purchase of weapons and equipment. America's top general, Mark Milley, has come up with an assessment. He says China is, quote-unquote, clearly developing the ability to invade Taiwan. American officials say the Chinese will be ready to take Taiwan by force in 6 years.
It's through here where around 70% of the drugs produced in Colombia and Peru are smuggled out of the country. The violence is the result of conflicts between rival criminal organizations. The government has declared a state of emergency in response. but it's in small coastal towns like Cruzita, where the conflict is ongoing on a daily basis. Killings and robberies are on the rise.
Peru's decision to deploy troops in its capital, Lima, this week has some there on edge. The armed forces entered Lima and its outskirts city Callao to support the police in fighting a, quote, significant increase in crime in recent months.
Afghanistan is one of the top producers of opium and heroin in the world. For many farmers here, it's the only way to make a living.
We grow poppy so we can buy bread for the family to survive. No government has helped us. We don't have adequate water for other crops, so poppy becomes the only available option.
Poppy cultivation has boomed in the last 20 years. It's a hardy crop that needs little water, cheaper to grow, and more reliable in terms of drought, which Afghanistan has been plagued by. The plant and the drugs that come from it are a multi-million-dollar industry that has benefited many previous governments, warlords, and the Taliban. The group now says it will ban it, a topic addressed in its first news conference since taking power in August. The group's spokesman, Zabihullah Mujahid, says they will bring opium cultivation to zero.
There is a very selective filter material inside our collector containers, which catches the CO2 molecules, and as soon as the filter is basically full, we close it off, and then we we heat it up to around 100 degrees.
Le dioxyde de carbone qu'on va injecter dans le sous-sol, on va l'injecter dans ce type de roche, qui est une roche basaltique. Comme vous pouvez voir, c'est une roche très très poreuse qui agit vraiment comme...
Trees are vital to life on Earth. They absorb around a third of all carbon dioxide, or CO2, which is emitted annually. But according to the United Nations, an estimated 28,000 square miles of forest are lost every year. That's the equivalent of 36 football pitches every minute. And Brazil, where vast areas of the Amazon rainforest have been cut down, is among the countries now backing this new pledge. In recent years, the problem has been getting much worse. Over 4,000 square miles of Brazilian rainforest were destroyed in just 12 months.
But the reality can look like this. No more tree canopy, the land stripped bare for planting crops.
I think it's absolutely exciting to see the commitment from the global leaders now to absolutely halt deforestation. This is going to lead to huge benefits to climate, to people, and of course to biodiversity. But I think many people are still skeptical. I've just been talking to some indigenous communities here, and they say that the decisions that are made here today in Glasgow, they're not really going to reach all the way to the ground in the Amazon.